on until the, if everybody wants, we can wait 5 more minutes just to be sure that everybody's online. Grant, how many have we got so far and how many more do we need?
We certainly have quorum, and as far as I can tell thus far, only members Clark, Metcalf, and Shurton are missing, and I don't know whether member Wright has logged in or not yet.
Oh, member Wright's here. I see him.
Okay. So as far as I know, those are the only 3 missing, but we can do a roll call at your discretion.
Okay. I see somebody named John online. Is that John Metcalf there?
No, it's John and Grail.
Oh, thank you, John and Grail. Sorry.
And I think my video is not working, my camera, so I don't want to lose you, so I'm just going to get voice.
If you want, John, you can, we'll wait for a minute. If you want to log off and log back in again, sometimes that's all that needs to happen.
I'm going to try starting my video again.
Okay. Good morning, Ed. And there's somebody called call-in user 3.
And no.
Good morning. Now there's so Grant, there's a call-in user 3, and I don't have that one logged. If you don't know who that is, I don't either.
I'm not sure who it is either, but I think we're good to go. I do believe we have a quorum, so.
Okay, let's start then. Thank you, everyone. We're going to call this to order. We're going to do a roll call. After you are acknowledged, can you please mute yourself to keep the feedback back to a minimum? If you can hear the feedback right now, that's because everybody's on open mic, it seems. So go ahead, Grant. We're going to do roll call first, and then we'll get into the base of the meeting.
All right. Of course, we have our chair, but I will call attendance. Member Beattie.
He was on earlier.
I'm here.
Yes.
And we know Member Brady.
I'm here.
Can you mute yourself now, please?
Will.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Member Bilsma.
Present.
And we know Member Clark is absent. Member Kuhn-Peterson. Member Kuhn-Peterson. Member Cridland.
Present.
Member Fior.
Present.
Member Foster.
Present.
Member Halinga.
Good morning.
Member Hewson.
Here.
Member Ingrao.
Here.
For Kwal.
Here.
Member McKenzie.
Present.
Member Metcalf. Member Metcalf. Member Rapley.
Here.
And we know Member Shurton is absent. Member Smith.
Yes.
Member Steele.
Here.
Member Woodhouse.
Has joined the meeting.
Right. Member Woodhouse.
Here.
And Member Wright.
Here. Here.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure if my video or my mute are working or not.
You're working fine. So now we just need you to unmute we need you to mute yourself now. So somebody just joined the meeting. Was that Member Kuhn-Peterson or Member Metcalf?
No, it was Lee.
Oh, it was Lise. Oh, thanks, Lise. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. The Niagara Peninsula watershed is located on the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples dating back countless generations. We want to show our respect for their contributions and recognize the role of treaty making in what is now Ontario. Approval of the agenda. Before we start, I just want to remind the public that we will be adjourning after we come out of camera, so the web streaming will stop prior to our closed session. Also remind the board members to keep yourselves mute unless you are ready to speak, and the public. And I just also want to remind the public as well, I'll be asking who is opposed rather than who is in favor. It seems to go a lot quicker that way. And if there's many who are opposed, then we will do a recorded vote for accuracy. So I need approval of the agenda. First of all, Mr. Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Thank you. So it's moved by Member Beatty and seconded by Member Brady to approve the agenda. Anyone opposed? Or any comments? Sorry. Thank you. So that is approved. And now we're going down to, does anybody have a conflict of interest? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes. It's moved by Member Bilsma and seconded by Member Cridland that approval of the minutes for both June the 18th, 2020 and the closed session meeting dated June 18th, 2020. Are there any comments, any corrections? Thank you. Any opposed? So it is carried. Thank you. And we're going to go down now to correspondence. This correspondence from Haldimand County to the Premier of Ontario dated June 25th, 2020. And this is to support for conservation authorities. Is to be moved to be received. I have right now Member Fior and Member Foster to receive the correspondence. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Any opposed? That is carried. We have no presentations or delegations today, but we are going right into consent items. 7A is report FA 3020, and this is Human Resources Quarterly Update. This is the Q1 and Q2, and it's for receipt. And Misty, do you just want to give us a couple of overall comments about it?
Absolutely, I can do that. Thank you. Just as a kind of an overview of what is in the report, it speaks to all of the functional areas of HR and what's happened over the first half of the year. As far as recruitment has been concerned, we've had 11 positions posted in the first half of 2020. All the postings have been in alignment with our recruitment and selection policy, as well as with the collective agreement provisions. Any internal competitions that occurred for bargaining unit positions occurred because there was internally qualified candidates that met those. And again, this is in alignment with our collective agreement. We are still looking at some upcoming positions that we'll see coming up towards the latter half of 2020 in restoration, and we're looking at some more support positions within planning as well. Kind of a general overview in employee relations and labor relations. We're continuing to build positive relationships with staff in the union. We've worked on secondment agreements with the union and with neighboring CAs to assist with workload issues for staff. We've put in temporary sick time provisions for our casual and student staff during the pandemic as well. And then we are almost on a review of all of the job descriptions to make sure they're updated, and we've implemented a structured review process to make sure that those are reviewed on an annual basis as part of the performance review process as well, which also contains goal setting. We have done 2 staff surveys to date this year, focusing more on pandemic responses. And then we are planning to do a more broad staff survey in the latter half of 2020 to gain more information in order to review and put together any further action plans. And then a brief update on the health and safety side. So we had some members of our health and safety committee work with other staff members to produce a vehicle circle check app, which has been even presented through to Conservation Ontario to other CAs and has been widely received. It's a great app, it's a great feature, and we're continuing to work to integrate those health and safety actions to be more readily available to staff so that they're more easily accessible to ensure they're being used consistently. And as well, our health and safety committee has been heavily involved in pandemic response planning, including risk identification assessment and implementing safety protocols. So that's an overview.
Thank you.
If there's any specific questions, I'm happy to respond.
Thank you. Any comments or any questions, please? Member Houston.
Really just a comment. When I came on this board 2 years ago, there was a lot of issues in terms of labor relations that were unresolved. And to see that we have no grievances filed in 2020 really demonstrates, I think, significant work at rebuilding relationships and improving the organization. So I just want to say congratulations. I think this is amazing work. And I think this report really speaks to the great work that the organization is doing, and I think it's something to be truly proud of. So thank you for all of the work that you've done here.
Thank you. Member Beatty.
Just two quick questions, Misty. What is the complement right now of full-time employees? How many do we have?
Through the chair, currently full-time employees, we have 49 full-time permanent or contract, so not counting our casual or seasonal staff.
Just 40?
49.
49, sorry. And how many open boxes on the org chart?
Currently, we have 3 vacant positions that are actively being recruited for. We have a 4th vacant position within restoration that we're just finalizing, and then we have a few other ones that we are considering. So in total, there are 4 vacant boxes on the org chart currently.
That would move our complement up to about 53.
Correct.
By the end of the year.
Correct.
And do we have an up-to-date org chart that you can send out?
I do have an updated org chart, and I can provide that to the CAO for distribution.
And you're smiling as if you thought that question was coming.
I make sure all my org charts are in big font as well.
Could you send it out, please? Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none. I also want to let you know that Deborah Kuhn-Peterson is now online grant. She just texted me. So good morning, Deborah. So it's moved by Member Halinga and seconded by Member Houston to receive Misty's report. Any opposed? Seeing none. We're on to 7B. This is report number FA 3820. This is the Planning and Regulations semi-annual report, and this is also to receive. Darren, did you want to comment on this, or are we good to go?
Thank you, Chair. I can just provide a quick preamble to it. Prior to this year, we have been doing quarterly updates for planning and regs for statistics. Conservation Ontario, through the client service document, has said that it should be a minimum of annual. So we've gone to a semi-annual distribution of that information. Currently this year, we're basically about 20% increase in our planning and regulations with a shorter staff requirement. And that doesn't take into, that's only for applications that we've received and processed, not taking into account phone calls or compliance or any of the other information. As well, you'll find that there is a brief mention of our compliance number of 70 complaints. We will be bringing in-camera session quarterly starting in September on our compliance issues to give a bit more background to the board and be able to ask questions in camera on those issues. But other than that, it's been a fairly busy year, and it seems to be getting busier for development stresses.
Okay. Hang on a second. I just screwed up something on my computer here. Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Member Smith and then Member Foster. Member Smith first. Unmute, please.
Thank you, Brenda. Just bring Darren, if I could, or maybe this is better to you, Brenda. It's more of a procedural thing. I note that it says 70 complaints, and I know that much of this has to be discussed in camera because, of course, we're talking about particular individuals. But in the future, for the reports, is it easily captured to say how many of those complaints are found to have merit and how many of them and are not have merit, I guess, if that's the right language to use? And can
I
that
think
be,
that's nope. I think that's a good open question for everyone to hear. So Darren, please.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So the 70 complaints are actually viable complaints, not that if you go by just people calling in complaining that that number will be substantially more. So that's just the viable complaints that are in there. But when we do the updates, we can definitely break it down to say we've received this total number of complaints, of which only this amount are viable.
Understood.
Thank you.
No trouble.
Thank you, Member Foster.
Yes, thank you. And I just have a quick question on the planning side. And I'm assuming everybody's aware of some changes that are going on at the provincial level with the Bill 197 that's being passed through that has pretty significant planning aspect to it as well. So I'm just wondering, have you been taking a look at that within your role, and whether or not there is any effect that we're going to be seeing on the NPCA?
Through you, Chair, we have been, at the present time, we're just starting to get into Bill 197 through all the changes to environmental assessments and everything else. We will be sitting in on meeting next week on the EA process through Conservation Ontario. But anything like that, we definitely will be looking at to see how it will impact the organization. And we will be bringing that information back as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I always worry when provincial governments put through omnibus bills, no matter what their political stripe. So so let's keep an eye on this, because there's usually nuances that we need to be aware of. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thank you. So I believe that we have, Grant, I didn't have two people move this yet, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Sorry, folks, I'm getting lost in my own writing here. So it's moved by Member Ingrao and seconded by Member Kaywall to receive this. Are there any opposition to that motion? Hearing and seeing none, it is moved. We're now on to 7C, report number FA 4520, and this is Conservation Ontario COVID Impacts Survey. This is to receive, and Chandra is available for questioning if anybody has read the report and has any questions or comments. Hearing and seeing none. So sorry, Member Kaywall, I didn't see you initially.
Sorry, thank you. So in the report, it summarizes the total revenue reduced, total staff layoffs, and seasonal staff not hired. We're bringing an update on the COVID financial planning scenarios to the Finance Committee at the next meeting. And I'm wondering if include the NPCA numbers for revenue reduced staff layoffs and seasonal staff not hired as part of that report.
Chandra, did you want to comment?
Good morning through you, Madam Chair. Absolutely, yes. We have all this data that we are providing to Conservation Ontario, and we do intend to include that in our report to the Finance Committee.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's moved by Vice Chair McKenzie, seconded by Member Rapley. Is there any opposition? No, seeing none, then it's moved. We're now on to discussion items. We have a couple of MAUs for you to look over. One is 8A, report number FA 3520. This is Ducks Unlimited Canada Wetland Memorandum of Understanding Agreement 2020, and this is for your approval. Jeff would like to present both 8A and B. We'll start with 8A first, Jeff, if you don't mind. I didn't see Jeff online, so I'm hoping you're here. Oh, Chandra, you're going to have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Brenda, sorry, it will be Steve Gillis.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff is away.
No, no worries. Okay, so what do you mean he's away? No one's allowed to have a vacation. Okay, sorry, Steve. So Steve is going to start with 8A. We're going to vote on that, and then we're going to go right into 8B, which is another MOU. So Steve, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This is it's a partnership agreement with Ducks Unlimited. We've been in partnership with them for a number of years, ever since about 2005 or so. And so this year we're doing 6 projects in partnership with Ducks Unlimited. 3 of the projects from 2019 were carried over and are on this agreement as well. I'm not sure if there's any more information anyone wants to know about it. Well, I'll take questions.
It's definitely a good news story. Are there any questions or comments?
It's Member Cridland.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Go ahead, Member Cridland.
Through you, Chair, to anybody on staff. I just don't recall what the general memorandum looks like. And I just had a question around the part that would cover any media, like being able for us to be able to use these stories. And just wonder if that's also included in the MOUs, and that can apply to A and or B. And if that has to come back later, that's fine. Thanks.
Thank you. Steve?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, there is a section in the MOA that deals with media. It's basically we'll share the stories on our social media or any kind of media releases, and they will do the same and recognize each other on either of those.
Thank you, Steve. Next, if you have to answer any more questions, you're going to have to get a little closer to the microphone. So Member Cridland, do you have any other questions? I think you just muted yourself by accident.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Member Brady. You're going to have to unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
I was working on it. I just wanted to make one comment. I very much support the work that Ducks Unlimited has done, and any time that we can get into partnership with them, I think it's an excellent idea. So good work, Steve.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Bill Rapley. We worked for many years with Ducks Unlimited at the Toronto Zoo with exhibits, the Green Wing program, bringing kids to the zoo for nest box building and all kinds of things, and restoration projects. And we've had tremendous activities with them, and I highly recommend that we do more and more with them as years go on.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, thank you so much, Steve. So it's moved by Member Smith, seconded by Member Steele, that we approve this MOU. Are there any oppositions to this? Seeing none, it is moved. So now, Steve, we're on to the second report, which is FA 3620, Land Care Niagara Tree Planting Memorandum of Agreement 2020. This is also for approval and also another good news story. Steve, you want to give us a couple of lines on this one?
Sure. Yeah, this is same idea as the Ducks Limited one. We're doing 9 projects with Land Care Niagara. Tree planting projects. It's covering about 35 acres. About 30,000 trees will be planted under this partnership. And the same thing with the media as well. It's we recognize each other and all that.
And all that. Are there any comments or concerns? Thank you, Member Kaywell.
Thank you. So I'm supportive of entering into both memorandums of agreement. Last September, the board had actually asked to get a list of all of the MOUs that the NPCA was involved in, and the previous CAO had committed to delivering. I think we're interested for 2 reasons. Number one, to understand the leverage of these partnerships, and to secondly, understand the resource commitment required to support all of the MOUs. So I'm hoping that we will be able to see the list of MOUs maybe in the next quarter, so that the board has a better understanding of how many of these we're involved in. Thank you.
And Chandra, I'm going to come right to you. I'm seeing you nodding your head, but I know you'd like to speak to it.
No, absolutely. That's the intention. It's on our list of reports. It is going to come. It's just a matter of time. Because of COVID and other priorities, we were a little distracted, but absolutely we are going to bring a report on all the service level agreements and MOUs to the board. And if it has to be Q4, yes, we have that list and we can bring it easily.
Thank you, Chandra. Member Kaywell, you're all done?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So seeing no other comments or questions, it's moved by Member Woodhouse, seconded by Member Wright, that the MOU for the Niagara tree planting memorandum be approved. Any opposition? Seeing none, it is approved. So now we're on to more discussion items. This is 8C, and this is the report number FA 4120. It's the FCM funding Capital Asset Management Program. Lise would like to speak to this because we need your approval on it. Lise, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. So to bring the members, give you a bit of a summary. So the board approved with the 2020 capital projects a $30,000 allocation for a capital asset management program. So it will also assist us with meeting Auditor General recommendations. So we went to RFP for this particular program, and there is an additional component of it that we were interested in, which is a work order management, which would help us with maintenance and state of good repair on our asset base. So when the RFP came in, the first component of it, which was the primary, was the capital asset management program. It came in under budget, but the work order component was going to have to be deferred until a future year because it came in higher than we expected. So throughout that process, you should please note that the capital asset management program has already been purchased and is in the midst of being implemented. So in the interim, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities has a grant funding opportunity that we would like to avail ourselves of, and this is what is before you for approval today. There is a maximum subsidy of $50,000 that we are seeking, and what it would allow us to do is have both the capital asset management program as well as the work order component of it implemented. And what it would, tantamount bottom line, is it would cost the agency $90 more than what you have approved for 2020. So that's the financial implication to the organization. So in order to apply for this particular program or grant funding opportunity, there are some criteria that have to be met, and that's why the recommendation is worded the way it is. First and second, we needed letters of approval from our municipal partners. We only required one, but we felt it was in everyone's best interest to seek approval letters from each municipality. So far, we have Haldimand's and Hamilton's. We are waiting for Niagara's, which we expect to have next week. So the final piece to allow us to move forward and seek this funding is board approval of the resolution as noted on FA 4120. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And I have a thank you, Member Halinga.
Okay, just a question on the budgeting for both 2020 and 2021. In the background, the current allotment was 30,000. We awarded a contract for 19,700. We have a surplus of 10,300 from 2019 or 2020. In the financial implications on the last page, we are showing a cost for 2021 of 40,600. Is that how much we will have to budget, or is it 40,600 minus the 10,300 that has not been used in the previous contract?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, actually the 40,600 is net. It would have been 50,000 and change with the $10,000 savings that was realized as a result of better than expected RFP results for the first component of it. The pricing for this type of thing is based on the size of your asset base and the size of your municipality, or in our case, our agency. So, the capital budget for 2021 will come in with assuming we go forward with this strategy, with a request for an additional component to the asset management program of $3,600, which would be offset by the all but $90 of it offset by the grant funding opportunity.
So Member Halenga?
So that answers my question. I just wanted
Thank
to know
you.
how much we would have to budget for.
Thank you. Can you unmute yourself? Can you mute yourself? Thank you. Member Smith? I know we got a lot of people, so I'm grabbing you as I see. Go ahead, Member Smith, and then I got Member Fior, and so far that's what I have. So go ahead, Member Smith.
Yeah, thanks. I was a little surprised that the board had to approve something like this, because it seems like we're just applying for money, which I don't see a downside to it. But really what I wanted to comment on is, because this came to the board, are we ever at risk of losing a grant opportunity because of the procedural delay in getting board approval? And if that is a case, then should we have a policy whereby board approval is not required, so that we don't risk losing opportunities?
Thank you. Elise, are we at risk for funding, losing funding over process?
Not in this case, and I was aware that this funding opportunity was imminent, so we have been watching for it. We made sure that it came to the board with plenty of time to meet all deadlines related to the funding opportunity, first and foremost. And this particular grant opportunity, the board approval is a requirement of the application, so it was non-negotiable. We had to come to the board in order to do that. So then it sort of behooves us to make sure that we give ourselves enough time to do that, which is exactly what we did. Certain grant opportunities do not require board approval, and if that's the case, then we would come back to the board with a report about the grant funding opportunities we took advantage of where your approval wasn't required.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. And Member Fior?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a quick question. Which page are we looking at on the October 16th agenda package that got referenced in this report? If you could just point me to a page number, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Lise.
Page 34.
34.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. We're at the top of the list again. Moved by Member Beattie, seconded by Member Brady, that we approve the funding for the Capital Asset Management Program. Any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, it is approved. We're on to 8D. This is report FA 4320, the 2022 wedding rates. We need your approval on this, and Alicia would like to present, and Adam is also going to be available for questioning. So Alicia, do you want to give us a Coles note, please? Good morning. Oh, unmute, please. There you are.
Good morning. So thank you very much for having us. We'd like to present our report for the 2022 wedding rates to be released this summer, so we're able to open up the opportunity for folks to book our venues here at Falls Falls into the following year. So as the report states, Falls Falls Conservation Area is a really idyllic natural and historical setting for weddings. It has been traditionally over the last several decades. We offer our historic chapel, a natural outdoor ceremony space, the Glen Elgin Room here in the Center for Conservation, as well as the idyllic Big Barn, circa 1882. It's highly popular. We're almost sold out for 2021 in our Big Barn. And a lot of that has to do with, as the report states, the fact that we've had to reaccommodate folks who have unfortunately not been able to hold their wedding ceremonies and receptions at Falls Falls this year. So across the Niagara region, many folks select their wedding venue based on the ability to either have a full complete package with catering and service included and decor included, or to have a service that's able to select their own vendors. And so we offered that latter option here at Falls Falls. As the report notes, Canadian couples spend almost $30,000 on average on their weddings, and about 10% of this goes towards the ceremony and reception venue rentals. And so when we look comparatively at our comparison chart provided, we see that Balls Falls is quite comfortable within that amount. In our Appendix 1, we provide an overview of local Niagara area wedding venues, and we feel comparatively when we look at the services that are provided here at Balls Falls compared to other conservation areas and other venues in Niagara, that we sit on average and offer really fantastic opportunities for folks to deliver and create their own ceremony space and reception space. So in terms of 2022, we're looking at a slight increase, an 8% increase only to our premier venues, the Glen Elgin Room and the Big Barn. And that increase of 8% results in a $250 increase, which still leaves our venues here very competitive and comparable to other venues in the market here in our local setting of Niagara.
Thank you, Alicia. Any questions or comments about the wedding rates? I think we're going to do another roll call soon because I have a lot of people not on video and not in, and it's going to be complicated right now to make sure we have quorum. I'm only counting 11 right now, so I just want to make sure if people are all here. Thank you. Oh, thank you. That's much better. So it is moved by Member Bylsma and seconded by Member Kuhn-Peterson. Actually, Member Kuhn, Deborah, can you please chime in so we know that you're listening in and you can move this? Oh, wait a minute. I think I just got another text from her. I did. Yep, she's here. Okay, super. Okay, so it's moved by Deborah Kuhn-Peterson. Sorry, moved by Member Bylsma, seconded by Member Kuhn-Peterson, that the wedding rates for 2022 are approved. Any opposition? Seeing none. Great job, Alicia and Adam. Thank you so much. It is approved. So we're on to 8E. This is report FA 4420. This is the 2020 Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival. Also, we need your approval. Again, Alicia is here. She'd like to present, and Adam is also available. If you saw that swing around with the monitor, you'll see that Adam's 6 feet apart. But I doubt it really matters when you're working closely together. So who would like to present? Is it Alicia or will it be Adam? Okay, Alicia, go ahead.
Thank you. So as we're all aware, the situation at hand for 2020 has resulted in festivals, events, fairs across Canada, internationally being unfortunately canceled or revisited in a new way to help to accommodate our events and festivals to maintain momentum for following years. I've had the pleasure to be able to participate in a number of calls and opportunities to learn from the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries, and learn a lot from the Honourable Minister Lisa MacLeod when it comes to adapting festivals and programming. Late last year in the fall, we applied for the Celebrate Ontario grant to help to support and fund our festival. And this spring we learned, as our attachment demonstrates, that the NPCA would be the recipient of $10,000 to help to deliver a modified festival here at Balls Falls and Thanksgiving in lieu of the current situation. And so the Celebrate Ontario grant has been adapted to allow for festivals and programmers to accommodate and modify their programming. Minister MacLeod's office has been very supportive of virtual events, things that include e-commerce opportunities for folks to shop and support local vendors and local talent and entertainers. We really want to maintain that momentum. 2020 would be the 46th annual year of us delivering the Thanksgiving Festival. As many of us know, last year in 2019, it was our most successful year in terms of visitation and revenue generation and customer satisfaction and vendor satisfaction here at Balls Falls. So we really wanted to maintain that. And with the support of Celebrate Ontario's grant, we're able to do that. So Adam and I have done a little bit of research and are proposing the idea of a modified virtual event, which will include the integration of an e-commerce platform called Local Line. As the report mentions, Local Line is a made in Ontario solution for farmers markets, for local growers and producers and food hubs, their produce and their goods to market directly. through an online platform. And so we've met with those folks and would love to establish a partnership with them in order to integrate their e-commerce platform for our vendors to sell over the Thanksgiving Festival website. We've also had an opportunity to speak with a number of different folks who are specialized in producing electronic and virtual events over the internet to deliver entertainment through live streams or through drive-through entertainment. Our guest demographics show that families, young folks, seasoned sippers and shoppers really want to come out and experience our events. And the ministry is really notion that momentum is required, and the purpose of this grant is to allow for that. So we are proposing a virtual festival with some in-person deliveries. As we see what's happening with stage 3, there are opportunities for more group gatherings and events to be taking place. And so at this time, we simply have a proposal to integrate an e-commerce platform into our website to allow our vendors to conduct sales, as well as to look at other modified programming. So the Celebrate Ontario grant allows for the payment of fees to go towards upgrading our website, to conducting virtual events or drive-through events. And so we'd like to continue to offer a 46th annual Thanksgiving Festival through this modified format. Our timeline looks at delivering primary content over the Thanksgiving Festival weekend. However, we would also like to provide some content leading up to the Thanksgiving Festival in the weeks previous. In our proposal to the Celebrate Ontario grant, we looked at having an increase in user activity on our website. So we'd be evaluating the number of folks and hits that we get on our website and social media pages when we're sharing it. And we also note that there are a number of benefits to continuing to deliver this 46th annual festival. We have a number of wonderful vendors who have been supportive of the event for decades that we would like to support. And we'd like to support local growers and producers who are relying on events like this to be able to conduct business and do sales, as well as to support local talent, so folks that perform on our stage throughout the Thanksgiving Festival. So this is an opportunity for us to engage with more people online virtually, and this is also an opportunity for the NPCA to step into the 21st century to deliver our content online through web-based services. We expect, and the presumption through Destination Ontario and through the Ministry of Heritage is that will probably carry on into the future. Folks are still hesitant about coming out and engaging in tourism and festivals and live local events. So integrating an e-commerce platform, integrating virtual entertainment delivery will really help us to do that. And we'll hopefully establish partnerships that we're able to do the same in 2021 and beyond, and perhaps in other events with the NPCA in the future. So our revised budget and inclusions are tentative. However, we do have the $10,000 grant from Celebrate Ontario to assist us in doing this. And all the planning that we're doing is revenue conscious, noting that we're trying to support folks and maintain momentum for our festival, as well as supply entertainment and opportunities for our local community.
Thank you, Alicia. I have Member Brady with a comment or a question.
Alicia, thank you very much for doing that. My daughters will be very pleased because I usually find a present for them at the festival, and now I'll pick it up online. I also anticipate that we may be able to reach an additional market by using this venue, and I very much support that as we move forward that we continue to do that.
Okay, thank you. So far I have Member Woodhouse and Member Billsma, Member Kaywell. Anybody phoning in would like to say anything or comment? No? Okay, so we'll just start right now. We'll go with Member Woodhouse first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is in relationship to the volume of email addresses and how we take advantage of that, or if you've anticipated, looking at this area of possibility for us as it relates to the festival and getting people engaged that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
So through you, Chair, we are engaging folks that already participate with the NPCA as customers and clients through social media, and as clients with our campgrounds, membership passes, and that sort of thing. What's really beautiful about the e-commerce platform that Local Line offers is that when conducting sales, customers have to create an account for themselves. that information and select whether or not they'd like to be become a member with us or to receive updates via email about more events and upcoming opportunities. So there's certainly an opportunity to engage and start to gather some information to continue to engage with our community, and many of those folks that attend our festival that we don't have that information for because it's such an instated event. It's been going on for over 40 years. It's quite well known in Niagara, but this is a wonderful opportunity, as you mentioned, to start to get to know and to gather the opportunity to connect with these customers on a more regular basis about our programming.
If I could, Madam Chair, a follow-up.
Sorry, I've been muting myself, just doing what I'm told. Go ahead, sorry.
In terms of the $10,000 and the opportunity that it's presenting for us, it seems to me with our foundation trying to rejuvenate itself and get more publicity for possible donations and funding sources, is there a way of integrating the two, like the business day activities with that of the foundation, or would we be violating some kind of regulation if we were to do that?
Thank you. Adam?
Through you, Chair, thank you for the question. We do try to keep the foundation budget and budget separate, but like all of our events, we will look to include and be more collaborative with the foundation with different services they can do to create their own type of revenue at the festival.
Okay, it's not so much about the revenue, Adam. My point is more to the transfer of information for contacts and being able to promote not only the day-to-day activities of the authority, but also that of the foundation for people to participate and get involved with the foundation.
Chair, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodhouse, and I'm assuming that's done. Member Bylsma.
Yeah, so I just wanted to commend the staff. Entrepreneurial thought often kind of in short supply sometimes in a municipal or in a board context and I just we had a remarkable festival and the people who've been supporting the Balls Falls Festival or the NPCA in general were there when we showed goodwill in cleaning up the organization and making ourselves accountable. And I was so disappointed as COVID, as we all are, as COVID is progressing, we see some of these events that we really had good aspirations to surpass. I see this as a real opportunity, both to expand our organization's outreach and to show what the good work that we've been doing collectively as a board with the staff. And I think that this is that opportunity to make 2022 then, hopefully this is all cleared up by then, we're all hoping, 2022 that much larger again, and we can continue to build on the momentum that so kudos to staff for making sure, not resting on their laurels, but making sure that we are taking opportunities even in the midst of COVID. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we're on to Member Kaywall, please.
Thank you, Chair. One question and one comment. So my question is with respect to the local line. Is this considered a sole source procurement? Yeah, let's answer that first. So.
Thank you. Adam?
Through you, Chair, thank you very much for the question. This would be considered a sole source in that this is a local Ontario company. It's generated in the purpose of the local line, and the folks that created the system just a few years ago is really as a social entrepreneurship and social justice response. They created this platform to support local vendors and farmers to get their produce to market, and so they charge a minimal fee per vendor to be able to provide this service. So it can be singular in this respect because they offer something that really no other service provider offers with the same intention and the same purpose.
Thank you. Member Kaywell?
Great, thank you. It's important. We don't have time to actually do an RFP, and that doesn't make any sense. So I support going along with a sole source, but they're not the only ones who offer e-commerce platforms. So I think we need to very carefully document the sole source procurement so that nobody comes back at us in future to say we didn't act fairly. So that was my question. So my comment is, you may be aware, Alicia, that the town of Lincoln on their website has created something called Shop Lincoln that has engaged a lot of the vendors in the community. And since Balls Falls is in the town of Lincoln, you may want to consider aligning with them and potentially expanding the reach that you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. We're on to Member Foster, please.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. So two things. First of all, yes, as a foundation member, I think it's important that if we're doing online work, definitely we should be promoting the foundation in that as well. And the foundation actually is kind of nice because donations and stuff can be routed through Canada Helps quite nicely, which is a good way of doing that. But I'm going to kind of put on my question mark hat a little bit here, and I'm not trying to be negative. I think this is good that we're moving along down this line, but I'm seeing a lot of things within this report of really don't know what it is that we're going to generate out of this. There's a sincere amount of chance that's going on here. I would like to see a little more detail on what you guys are thinking is realistic. And the reason is that let's not kid ourselves. NPCA is going to be under the gun this year for budget. We're going to be under the gun at the region of Niagara for budget as well. So, let's just make sure that we're not doing a whole lot of time and effort and investment in something that ends up becoming something that we look back on saying, oh my God, like maybe we should not have been right down the road.
Deborah Peterson
Oops.
has left the meeting.
Oh dear. Was it what I said, Deborah? Anyway, so anyway, I would just like to make sure that we have a little better handle on what's going on from a budget point of view, because this makes me very nervous as we're approaching this. So thank you.
Alicia, do you have any comments to that? Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. We see this event and what we're proposing with the e-commerce platform, coming in under our procurement threshold, and with what we're planning to be considered a low-risk event with low expenses. So although the event is a budgeted event, previously going into 2020, we're looking at avoiding some of those expenses in order to deliver a modified event to be low risk and low expense. So similar things that we were spending money on, such as large entertainment stages, tents for the festivals to deliver it in person, staffing as well, are not going to be expenses that we're going to be seeing this year. And those were our greatest expenses, were tents and staffing and security and golf carts. So because we're not delivering the in-person event, some of those very expensive costs are going to be eliminated by going this virtual low impact and low risk route. And that's our intent. This is, we don't plan on going forward with something that could be considered an expense risk. So that's our plan going forward, and I can assure you we're being very conscious as we go forward and would not take a step that we would be considered risky.
Thank you. Member Foster?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, no disrespect, good words, but I think it would be really good for us to see this on paper stating this is what our thinking process is. I have no clue what some of those expenses are that you're talking about. And so like just give us a sense of realism that's going on with this. And I'm sure we have appropriate meetings between now and when we're done with this to go through something like that. So thank you very much.
Super. I don't have anybody else down on the speakers list unless somebody wants to chime in who's just phoned in. Deborah, do you want to chime in? Just let us know that you can hear and you can talk. Deborah chimed out so she could chime back in again because she was getting a bad connection.
Brenda, I have a question if I may.
Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And through you to Alicia and Adam, I just have one or two questions. But beforehand, I do compliment you with the cautions that Member Foster detailed. But this has an opportunity of expanding the event future as the world moves into this virtual platform and e-commerce. And as Alicia mentioned about there's a large number large expenses that won't be incurred this year, such as the tents and security. By going virtual, we bring in some rainproofing to an event because as some staff may remember, there are years where Thanksgiving weekend is a washout with rain, and that's not helpful. So this is giving us some kind of a umbrella if it's expanded properly, and I certainly have the confidence in the staff to explore those avenues. And in line with what Member Foster mentioned, would like to see the details as to the major expenses and where the major revenues come from. And Alicia, could you outline where revenues might come from this year with this virtual event? I don't need I'm not looking for numbers. I'm just looking for where pigeonholes may fit or what you've envisioned for a rev. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, that's an excellent question. We're looking at opportunities to generate revenue in a few streams, very similar to what we've done in the past in terms of generating revenue from vendors' fees. There's an opportunity to generate revenue. So local line charges a very minimal fee. It's actually $15 per vendor to be hosted on their e-commerce platform. So there's an opportunity to charge a greater administrative fee to vendors to be able to host them on the site. They also offer the opportunity to make a percentage of commission off of those electronic or e-commerce sales. So that's one area that the service provider offers. We're also looking at the opportunity to generate revenue from small group tours. So now that that type of service is now offered and allowed within stage 2 and moving into stage 3, we're able to look at that in terms of hosting some form of live content for ticketed small group tours through our village. So able to generate revenue through that stream, as well as the attendance at an outdoor event or virtual. So there are two options. If we go with a virtual event, there are ticketing systems where it's paid admission. It can be minimal because, again, we're trying to support our community to attend an online streaming of a live performance taking place, maybe live streamed from the barn, for example. But we've also had conversations with production companies about drive-through events, or drive-in events, I should say, and the opportunity to deliver concerts during the day or performances during the day and in the evening, and generating revenue off of ticket sales per vehicle for a drive-in event. And that's an area of revenue that we are considering as well, to be able to offer still a live experience, but using the very cautious and very safe method of delivery through a drive-in event, which Minister McLeod, in my conversations with her when we hosted her here at Balls Falls in June, was very supportive of and very interested to see with our Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival, with which she's very familiar. So those are three avenues that we're exploring, and ability to generate revenue through this new or modified event.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that exhausts the speakers list. And Alicia, you did an amazing job with the staff when you were speaking with the Minister McLeod, and Member Kaywell and myself were there along with Chandra and Adam and a whole slew of other staffing. It was well done. You did an amazing job. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And so I see no other speakers, and I'm looking at Member Cridlin and seconded by Member Foster to approve the Balls Falls Festival event for 2020. Any opposition? Hearing none. Thank you. It's carried. We're now on to committee reports. So we have the minutes for the Public Advisory Committee meeting dated June 18, 2020. This is to receive first. So we will ask Member Halinga, Member Hewson to receive the minutes. Are there any opposition about the minutes? Seeing none to receive the minutes. So now we are on to, there's one item for approval from those minutes, and it comes from report FA 3420, the NPCA Public Advisory Committee report. This is in the terms of reference and the work plan. Carrie, who does an amazing job on this committee, would like to explain the minor changes to the terms of reference and is available for any other questions. Good morning, Carrie. I saw you on here earlier. There you are.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with the committee today. So we just did some proposed changes to the terms of reference. The one big change is that the board chair will no longer co-chair the Public Advisory Committee. The committee will select a chair from within their members. That's come up a few times. I know there's been discussions around it at the board level, and as well, I've heard it many times from members of the public as well. So both the chair and vice chair would be ex officio members of the PAC, and then the total number of members would be 14 rather than 12. The recommendation, the section with regards to the PAC committee recommendations only and no voting powers has been removed from the terms of reference. The PAC does sometimes have to vote on things that get recommended to the board, and then it's up to the board to make the final decision. And the other big item is the establishment of a watershed floodplain subcommittee added under the committee purpose and role. And that is to address the fact that the watershed floodplain subcommittee, Steve Miller would likely be able to explain it a little bit better, but from my understanding that committee has had a lot of changes, and that the members that were part of that committee were mainly interested in the Welland River floodplain issues and mapping projects. And so once they were done with mapping the Welland River, they had no interest in continuing to be a watershed floodplain committee for other watersheds. So this would allow the Public Advisory Committee to serve that role of providing insight and recommendations to the staff and the board when it comes to floodplain mapping projects. So that's that item. And then I just changed the terms of reference to be in line in terms of the way they look with the other terms of reference for the other standing committees of the board. So that's the main part of the terms of reference. Should I pause here and take questions about that, or should I just continue with the work plan as well?
Sorry, Carrie, I muted myself. Just go ahead. Let's do the whole thing, and then if anybody has any questions at the end, how's that?
Sure. And so then when it comes to the work plan, we had agreed to provide a work plan for the Public Advisory Committee so that they had some say in what types of projects they would be looking at and working on, and so that they sort of have a heads up of what they're looking at for the year. So we drafted up with input from the managers and directors of each of the different departments within the NPCA when they looked at their work plans and their staff work plans, what types of things that would be coming forward to the Public Advisory Committee from those items, and to put this together. And this is now the draft work plan for approval by the board for 2020 and 2021.
Thank you, Carrie. I haven't had anybody flag me down to tell me they have any questions or comments. So I'll just jump in here. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Sorry. Member Hewson and then Member Kwal so far. Go ahead, Member Hewson, and then we'll go as well. I got Member Wright. Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just noticed a couple typos. There was one on the work plan under discussion. So I guess it was Page 57, it said at the June 18th, 2021-20 meeting. I'm assuming that's 2020. And then if you look at the actual terms of reference, I believe there's a line there that was meant to be removed. I guess it's page 64 on the agenda where it says meeting location. There's a partially completed sentence. At the discretion of chair, comma.
Oh, I think that was supposed to, through you, Madam Chair, I think I was supposed to add a section there about that there may be a need for virtual meetings from time to time based on the year that we've had. So that would just be added, that the meeting location could include virtual teleconference meetings. So sorry about that.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Houston. Member Kaywell.
Thank you. I want to start with the proposed floodplain subcommittee. Okay, and I want to go back to comments our CAO has made with respect to the amount of effort required by staff to support committees. Okay, I think we've heard her very clearly, and in fact, we have stayed away from, as a board, we've stayed away from creating additional committees. I know there has been talk about the potential need for some of those board committees. Okay, at this point in time, we've agreed not to do that. What I'm seeing here is a proposal to create a new subcommittee, which will require staff support. And I see that the proposed membership of that committee is just made up of people on the Public Advisory Committee. So I don't really see the need to actually create a separate subcommittee. I think that's probably a set of responsibilities that the Public Advisory Committee could undertake just as part of their Public Advisory Committees. So let me stop there. I do have another question about the roles and responsibilities, but I'd like to get the reaction of the CAO, first of all, and maybe other board members as to whether we need to actually create another subcommittee.
Thank you, Ken. And I was there at the meeting, so I just to let you know, I believe that there was lack of interest to start another, for people to get on this committee that's really well received. Anyways, Chandra, go ahead.
Well, you're right, Brenda. Thank you. This was proposed as an additional function as part of their work plan. That was the intention, but not everybody on that committee wants to be engaged in that because they have other interests. So basically what it is rather than creating a new committee, it's just a subset of interested members. That this is the proposal that was made by the PAC to take interested members and assign them the responsibility to help staff with that. There will be no additional staff supports required because Steve Miller is already doing that as part of his job responsibilities on the Welland River. So basically he will help carry and take that on.
Thank you. Member Kaywell.
Okay, so then I'd like to come back and talk about what's on the bottom of page 59 with respect to the roles and responsibilities. Okay. And the first sentence of the very last paragraph talks about the subcommittee will make recommendations to NPCA staff and the board of directors. Our bylaws actually say that standing committees only make recommendations to the board, not to staff. Okay. So I would suggest that we need to remove that recommendations to NPCA staff. And I'm also concerned about the word all. So it talks about making recommendations to the board on all matters related to watershed floodplain mapping projects. And further down in bullet point number 3.
Okay, Ken, I'm going to stop you now. We're going to go start to the beginning because you've got some important points and I think they each deserve a response, if you don't mind. So the recommendations to staff, the NPCA staff, Carrie, it was my understanding that this was because staffs often come to the PAC just to get some recommendations on how to go forward on a certain way and how to reach out to the public, that sort of thing. It's not technical advice. It's just basically what does the community say out there advice. So go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, that's the intent would be that when there's watershed floodplain projects that our staff member Steve Miller would be presenting to the Public Advisory Committee, and then get advice on how do we engage and go out to the public in that watershed to get their feedback and what that looks like, if it's a survey, if it's a portal, if it's a video conference, if it's a public meeting. That would be the kind of advice that we'd be looking for from the Public Advisory Committee.
Okay, thank you. And Ken, your second point, I'm sorry, I was writing fast and furious and I missed that one.
Yeah, so let me just continue on that point for a second, because our bylaws actually say standing committees make recommendations only to the board, okay? Where in turn recommendations are considered for approval. So the Public Advisory Committee is a standing committee. And I think we're introducing some language here which is not in alignment with our administrative bylaws, okay? So I don't think I'm ready to go there at this point in time. Yeah.
I think Chandra wants to, I think it's a bit of wordsmithing here. So Chandra?
It is as simple as changing recommendation to advice. Yeah, sure. We can do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So Carrie, it's advising, but not recommending, correct? Okay, Ken, are you okay with that?
I am, yes.
Okay, good. So now your second point, again, the
second point is the end of that sentence. It talks about all matters related to floodplain mapping projects. And then if I go down to the third bullet point, it talks about review of peer opinions, technical and other informations as appropriate to on and on, okay?
Right.
So at this stage, it appears that this committee is treading into the area of what I would consider board oversight, okay?
Okay.
We've recently had some very robust discussions at the board with respect to the well and floodplain mapping. And I think it was the Beamer Creek floodplain mapping. And I thought the process worked really well in terms of staff are the experts that bring forward the recommendations about the technical part of these, okay? The board had the opportunity to actually question them. The board actually has the skill sets to actually delve into some of the technical analytic requirements of this. And I think that process worked well. I don't see what value this committee would have in that process of providing advice on the technical part of it.
Okay. All right. So Chandra wants to respond to that. So if you don't mind, I think we got the gist of it. So
I will have Steve come to this discussion at this point, Brenda, if that's okay.
Sure. And where is Steve? I didn't see him on. There he is. Steve, I wonder if you were listening in on that conversation that the board members, or sorry, the PAC members should not be offering advice or recommendations on technical issues. I think we resolved that earlier with the advice portion, but even Member Kaywell, you want to correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding was the question is, why is PAC offering recommendations to staff on technical issues?
Correct.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. An opportunity here that we have a PAC that's comprised of members of many different sectors: agriculture, environment, planning, commerce, and it was envisioned that this body would be used to obtain advice, how best to go out, for instance, to engage with the public during this time of COVID. But in addition, it was envisioned that we would come back and present the findings to the PAC, and the PAC would make a recommendation to the board. It's recognized absolutely that the board is the approving body, but this would be an additional level of oversight and input in an effort to be transparent and fully an attempt to more better engage the resources that we do have.
So thank you for that. So I'm fully supportive of all the other bullet points you have there, which talk about the helping the transparent public process, et cetera. The concern I have is that we're asking people who are not chosen for skill set, okay, to actually delve into, technical peer opinion reviews, okay, which I believe are actually the responsibility of the board, okay? And furthermore, when I look at the membership of the Public Advisory Committee, these are selected from sectoral areas. And I believe that some of those sectoral areas could actually be in a position of conflict of interest if they are actually weighing in on technical details that ultimately end up in a floodplain mapping that ultimately affects them. Okay? So I would prefer if we just struck bullet number 3 out of there. And I'm fully supportive of all the other bullet points as to the role they provide with respect to providing advice on process.
So I will go to Steve, then go to Chandra just to finish up. So Steve, are you quite content? We have at the very beginning of the bullet points that they would offer advice, not recommendations, not to critique anything. And as Member Kaywell said, and well said, that some of these members could in fact have a conflict. So having advice, what are your thoughts about eliminating that third bullet point?
Through you, Madam Chair. Advice, I'm completely comfortable with changing the recommendations to advice. That is an appropriate change.
Okay.
I would defer to the wishes of the board with respect to the technical comment, but I do know in the past it had been very helpful to present previous to the advisory committee to through a lot of these issues, and then the advisory committee, if they were satisfied, they'd make the recommendation to the board. The board, it would be their prerogative to accept or decline the recommendations of this advisory committee, much as they had the prerogative to accept or decline the recommendations of the previous Welland River Floodplain advisory committee. So I would leave it to the board's decision on which way to best proceed in this matter.
So just to be clear, you said at the very beginning that eliminating bullet point 3 was fine, correct? Or you have concerns about that?
No, it will work either way, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Member Kaywell?
Those were my comments. I'll speak. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chandra, did you want to chime in, please, on those comments?
So the advice one is okay, changing recommendation to advice. On bullet point 3, we can certainly as staff go back. I did not see anything different than what Welland River Floodplain Advisory Committee was doing. We do have mechanisms to declare conflict of interest for members, and it was actually, I was surprised to what degree members of the PAC are aware of that, and they recuse themselves, even coming on board on this committee. Like we have a representative of the planning group, on this committee, and he's not a part of this subcommittee. And that is why it's so important to have a selected handful of people who probably have no conflict of interest like that, or the mechanisms are there in the terms of reference for them to declare that conflict of interest if it comes to that point, and staff can really make sure that they're on top of that. If the board still has concern, I'm happy to go back and look at that bullet point and reconsider that.
Okay, thank you. Member Kaywell, you're all just coming back to you to finish wrapping up. You're okay?
I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you. So right now I have Member Wright, Member Halinga, Member Woodhouse. So Member Wright, you're next.
Oh, thank you, Chair, through you. One of my main concerns was bullet number 3 with respect to review of technical opinions. I look at it similar to like a financial audit. Would you go to the PAC to organize or to review the financial audits, the yearly financial audits? And I say probably not. That's the board's role. And so I really do think that the board it should be the responsibility of the board for the peer reviews and the opinions, technical peer reviews. I would prefer to see it as, instead of PAC subcommittee, I would prefer to see a technical peer review committee struck up, which looks at the technical aspects of floodplain mappings and consists of experts in the field. I think that would much better serve the NPCA than a PAC subcommittee. And I'll be advocating that for a long time, but that would be my my request.
Okay, thank you. We have more or less two requests on the docket right now. One is to eliminate bullet point 3, which I'm hearing from staff is not an issue. And member Wright, you just came up with another bullet point. Can you just reiterate what you just were recommending instead?
I would like to see, instead of a subcommittee from the PAC, to have an actual technical peer review team made up of external technical experts for the floodplain mapping. I think that would be better than or you could have, maybe you could have both, but I think that's what I would like to see instead.
Okay.
That's a complete change. I don't expect the board to pass that, but I would still like to put that out there for discussion.
Are you comfortable then, sir, maybe taking this offline and going with Steve Miller and working something out so that it is something that could be palatable to bring to the board for approval?
Yeah, it's possibly, sure. With anybody else on the board who maybe has those concerns as well.
Okay, so Steve, you've got a offer of volunteering here. If somebody wants to sit down with you, I'm just going to leave it in your good hands. So for right now, we're looking at eliminating bullet point number 3. That's on the discussion, but that doesn't mean you can't ask questions about the whole recommendation. Member Halinga.
Okay, I'd like to go back to some of the chronology of the Floodplain Mapping Advisory Committee. We've now basically eliminated the Welland Floodplain Mapping Advisory Committee, and we're setting up new subcommittees for each of the various watersheds. I just guess that's my impression, and I'd like confirmation that that's what it is. And if that is what it is the PAC committee almost a duplication or a PAC of the advisory committees, the subcommittee of the advisory committees, and not the other way around? The watershed is part of PAC.
Thank you. So, Chandra, I think you're wanting to jump in this, so go ahead, because you were at the meeting as well.
Yeah, and Steve can weigh in, or Carrie, the purpose of these advisory committees really, as I understood when I came on board, is public input and being transparent and going to the public and talking to them. And if that's the purpose, we already have a public advisory committee doing that for NPCA. It doesn't make sense to set up 4 or 5 new advisory committees as we go on. So that was my thinking of suggesting this change. This does not eliminate from any additional, technical vetting that the staff need to do through the board or otherwise with experts. So just so everybody is clear, we are thinking of public engagement, transparency, working with the community, and that's the purpose. We already have a committee. Why not utilize them rather than establishing new committees? That was the intention, really.
Thank you, Member Halinga.
Okay, it just still seems to me as there are 2 committees and 2 subcommittees, and which one is responding and giving advice to the other. And if we have the specific watershed advisory committee, they could ask for advice from PAC, and would the PAC subcommittee be reporting to the floodplain mapping advisory committee.
Thank you, Chandra.
Just to respond, Member Halinga, this is to replace that model. We will not have separate advisory committees for each watershed. That's exactly what is proposed. So we can avoid that duplication and committee work.
Member Halinga?
I guess that means that there will not be an advisory committee anymore.
For which? Because there is an advisory committee.
The floodplain watershed advisory committees for floodplain mapping.
Chandra, I think maybe you might want to just clarify that.
This is what I'm saying. Yes, the PAC replaces that. Instead of having a watershed committee for each watershed as we go forward, that public function PAC can undertake for NPCA. This is what we're proposing.
Member Halinga?
Well, yes, it wasn't quite clear in the report, and so that's why I am asking that. And in that case, I think that the subcommittee should be made up of members that are interested in sub-watershed, because just having it from the from members from PAC, I think that is very limited.
Yep. And if I can jump in here, sir, maybe this might help a little bit. When I was attending the meeting, I can tell you that the members sort of had a bit of concern about joining this subcommittee because of the work that was involved. And it was my understanding, and Steve can correct me, it was very hard to get anybody to join a watershed committee because of the work that's being involved. The people that did volunteer to be on this are very avid volunteers and very much interested in the NPCA. Those are just my take on this. And my understanding was it was to avoid having 6 or 7 watershed committees, one for each watershed. This would combine them all into one, and it would be part of a subcommittee of PAC. I don't think, Steve, that it was limited to only those PAC members. If there were other people out there that would now come forward, because they didn't come forward before, that wanted to join this subcommittee, would that be acceptable?
Absolutely. Through you, Madam Chair, if I could clarify.
Sure.
Back in 2018, the Watershed Floodplain Advisory Committee was transformed into the Floodplain Advisory Committee, direction of the board. At that time, I wasn't with the CA in 2018, but it didn't appear that members of the Welland River Floodplain Advisory Committee were informed of that decision. So in 2018, the Welland River Floodplain Advisory Committee was transformed into a Floodplain Advisory Committee, which had the responsibility to oversee all floodplain mapping in the NPCA. Okay. Every watershed. So we have a body now that was for that. The membership didn't change, even though the responsibilities grew. When the Welland River Floodplain Mapping Study wrapped up at the end of 2019, we started to look at other floodplain mapping projects that we had on the books in St. Catharines, Walker Creek, work that we would need to undertake now to continue on that project. All the public members of that, now the Floodplain Advisory Committee, had no interest in any other watershed outside of the Welland River. So suddenly we were left with a big hole, the public members that recused themselves, that back. So we have a big gap there. The other members were board members that were interested. The board, of course, turned over. So on the books right now, we have a Floodplain Advisory Committee with no membership. So we're thinking, how do we address this? How do we come up with an advisory committee that can help provide advice to the Conservation Authority on public engagement, all those projects, floodplain mapping projects throughout the watershed? How do we do that? And we looked at the composition of the Public Advisory Committee that we have in front of us, and we thought, what a great fit. There's an opportunity here, a ready-made structure, membership across sectors. Of the 10 members that were at the Public Advisory Committee meeting, 5 were a strong yes, saying they want to comment on floodplain mapping matters. 3 were a maybe, but since through Carrie they've come around. So we have 8 members of that committee that are looking to undertake that responsibility. They're quite excited to do so. So I hope that provides, Madam Chair, a bit of background.
Thank you. Member Halinga?
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate for a member of the board to sit on the subcommittee, but I would volunteer to do that. And I do think that continuity is important, that if you sit on a board for one floodplain watershed, that the same process, criteria be applied in all of the watersheds of NPCA.
Thank you. Steve or Chandra, comment about a board member being on this watershed subcommittee?
I personally have nothing against that. I think the more the merrier and better input. We need to just go back and check the mechanisms on the membership and all kinds of things, but I'm sure we can facilitate that. If it means we need to tweak the terms of reference, please allow us to do that, like after this approval of the board to do that. But again, Steve can weigh in, and personally on my part, I don't think the board will get an opportunity, but I think if the board members have represented, being represented in community-based groups, that opportunity is there for board members.
Yeah, and I think the PAC members would welcome it. So member, Steve, did you want to comment?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I have no objection. And actually, it's a like Chandra's comment, the more the merrier.
Member Halinga, I'm coming back to you for wrap up now.
No, that pretty much resolves all of my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're now on to Member Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to the process itself, I don't have any difficulty with what's being proposed here. The process itself in conflict with the regular means of moving documents to the board. Can I suggest this? And I agree with Ken in terms of his interpretation and understanding of the process for these documents. Could it be received by the board and then referred to staff to come back to the board with a series of staff comments in terms of the recommendations of the committee? That way, it seems to me that if we were able to do that, we would not violate our own processes and procedures, but at the same time get the expertise and input that we would require. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Chandra, I've got you, Stu.
There's some suggestions, some very good suggestions coming here. If it means process improvements, I can sit down with staff. We can come up with the process to accommodate all these good suggestions.
Okay, thank you. And Member Woodhouse, we're all wrapped up here.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Beattie.
Yes, I spent a few years on the Welland River one. Ended up as a very detailed process, and I don't think that's me. As long as board members,
thank you.
Pardon? As long as board members are available and want to serve on committees, subcommittees that are important to their communities, I went on the Welland River one because it has an effect on my community of Glanbrook of Hamilton. If we were going to have a floodplain mapping committee for 40 Creek or 20 Mile Creek, I would hope that I would be allowed to sit on that. So there should be an open invitation to any board member who has an interest, either in general or specific to the community that you represent. I hope that's understood. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that exhausts the board comments. So we've got a couple of things that we need to wrap up for staff right now. So Chandra, correct me if I'm wrong. So delete number 3, the bullet point on the recommendations for the watershed / subcommittee. That was number 1. Number 2, that board members would be welcome to join. And I think the third one, I think it was going to be Member Wright was going to go offline with Steve Miller and work out maybe a possible alternative to this. But in the meantime, we have to do something before that alternative comes to fruition, if it does come to fruition. So is everybody okay? Oh, Diana, did you want to speak?
Yeah, just a question. So what information would the floodplain mapping committee be reviewing if they didn't have access to peer opinions, technical, and other information that validate the accuracy and applicability of the mapping?
Thank you. Steve, I think I'll go to you if you don't mind, because I think that bullet point was part of your report anyway.
But that's the
Steve.
bullet that is being suggested to be removed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Steve Miller?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. What we need a couple of things. Right off the top, is best get the message out, how best to engage the public. And we heard that again through the Welland River process. The advisory committee at the time came up with some great recommendations. The mail-out postcards were fantastic, and it seems like a simple thing now, but nobody had done it before, and that's become our how we proceed with public engagement, one of our media campaigns. This technical component, it's really no different. It's in the same spirit as when we go out to the public, much like we did for Walker's Creek and Beamer's Creek. In an effort to be transparent, we put the entire study online so folks can download the report, the draft report, they can download the maps, they can look at it, they can provide their comments to us, whether online or by email, written submission, however. So this is really the same vein. We encourage folks to ask questions about our report, and it's a good thing. It allows us to explain the technical details, to be transparent. It forces us to defend what the work that has been done. So we ask this of the public. Certainly, we ask it of the board, and it's in that same vein that it was envisioned that we would ask it of the this public advisory committee.
Member Houston?
So is there, would they able to effectively be able to give an opinion on some of the information you would be providing if they didn't have access to that information?
Steve?
Yeah. Through you, Madam Chair. The one of the strengths is you start off when you do some technical work. There's certain parameters or assumptions that you use, and then you proceed.
Sorry, hang on, Steve. Steve, you're popping in and out here.
Rural area. We assume that there are rural land uses on that floodplain.
Okay, Steve, just
Turn
a
off
second,
my
please,
video.
because you're
Can
popping
you
in
hear
and
me,
out.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, hang on a second. I'm going to get Steve to repeat that because it just sort of faded in and out a little bit. So do you mind, Steve, just repeating and then continuing on?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me now, Madam Chair?
A lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for the
No,
connection.
no worries. It's COVID.
So one of the things that's expected, rather than having this board or the Public Advisory Committee, should say, they would question or ask questions about some of the assumptions that were used for the basis of design. How much rainfall is assumed would be a good one. What did you assume as the land cover in the floodplain in the rural areas? You know, so it's those kind of things that we would expect the Public Advisory Committee to ask and challenge the design team on, much as we would expect those questions to be asked from a member of the public who's looking at the report.
So are you saying that they can't do that if they don't have access to the information?
You're right. Through you, Madam Chair, that ability would be limited, yes.
Yeah. So for me, especially since these documents are public documents, I don't see why we need to remove this item. And if it's something that was consistent with the previous committee, which I believe I've heard, I don't think we need to change this. I mean, the committee serves a role in providing public feedback to the information that our technical experts are presenting, as well as industry experts have presented. And this is a role that's very important for this organization, having public feedback in response to the information that this board receives and being able to comment on that. So I think just for transparency reasons, it would be better. And considering it's public anyway, I think they need this information in order to effectively comment on, or to be able to complete the role that we're asking them to have.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to, if you don't mind, Steve, I'm going to go to Chandra, because I think this just requires a bit of wordsmithing. I think initially the response was that that the PAC Subwatershed Committee would make recommendations on technical issues. And I think that made everybody believe that we don't have a lot of technical experts in the room, so why are we giving them that power? So maybe there's some wordsmithing that can be done to encompass what Mpca and some others have said about the public input. Go ahead. You got to unmute yourself.
I think the intent of what we are talking about, we're all on the same page. It's the language that is causing some confusion. So I'm happy to go back and wordsmith it. The first change we were advised was changing recommendation to advice. Bullet B can be changed to reflect. If that language is causing an issue, we can change it to reflect. Any information that's out in the public is out to this PAC subcommittee, and they are reviewing information. That's what exactly it has. It is not intended for them to review technical information and, for staff to say, okay, PAC has reviewed technical information, we're good to go. That's not the intention, and I go on public record to say that. So just so everybody is clear. I should also say that for the rest of the, so we can clean that up and finalize that. The other thing, and we've been asked to allow board members to sit on that committee if the floodplain mapping is happening in the local area. We can also make that recommendation in the terms of reference itself, that the PAC can invite local members, who are also board members, to participate as opportunities come up, so we will be bringing that information to the board. Board members are welcome to participate. So that's number 3. The question on the technical side of things, I want to remind board members that one of the items for the training is floodplain mapping. And I want to have a session with the board members on how NPCA undertakes floodplain mapping, the whole process and everything. And as that training. It's on the list of 3 or 4 or 5 training items that the governance committee has approved. And I do want to confirm that members will have an opportunity to have a candid discussion about how we do this, how information is put out, and you know, what is the standard in the industry to do that. So I totally intend to do that this year, towards the end of the year or October, depending on how we can schedule that. So I think we can park that discussion, and there'll be ample opportunity for members to do that instead of you know, wasting members' time to go work with staff on the technical details. I would like to use that opportunity to clearly understand what are the issues here, how we address them, because looks like I want all of our board members to be on the same page. It's an important responsibility for the board to help staff with this, and we shouldn't be engaging in so much if we set the parameters right from the very beginning.
Thank you. So Member Houston, I believe you still had the floor. So did you want to wrap that up? No, you just muted yourself.
I was thinking maybe it would be helpful if it actually said consider peer opinions. And I know we're wordsmithing here, but maybe, and that might help distinguish between doing a technical review of these type of documents versus, you know, having access and being able to review them as part of their decision-making process in putting forward a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. It sounds like we've got a bit of wordsmithing going on, and we've got 2 people just shut up, so it's got a whole new conversation going. So folks, what I'm going to ask you right now is that if we just focus on bullet point number 3, if we can get that out of the way, then, and we get that wordsmithed in, then we can move the whole recommendation, I believe, as amended. So I'm going to go to Member Kaywell and then go over to Member Halinga. So Member Kaywell.
Thank you. So let me have a compromise here. So keep the first line of bullet 3 and remove the second and third line. Okay.
Can you please, only because I don't have that in my head. So go ahead. What is it?
So what would remain would be review of peer opinions, technical and other information as appropriate.
Good. Thank you. So on that, and just because Member Halinga, Member Kaywell has put forward a bit of a suggestion, can we just stay with that suggestion and then I'll come back to you, or would you like to comment on that suggestion?
No, I think he said what I was going to say.
Okay.
And that is actually this report, under 9, we received it under 9. It is for approval. Are we going to send it back for adjustment and approve it at the next meeting, or are we going to amend it here and then approve it?
And that was a process question. So to Chandra, how time sensitive is this that we need to wrap this up today, or can we take it back, all the suggestions, make the adjustments, and then bring it forward to the next meeting? Yes.
Yeah, I think it will be a good idea to make those 2 changes right now. Wordsmith is.
Yeah.
I'm okay with Member Kaywell's suggestion. That's a good compromise. Change recommendation to advice. So that will be the changed motion, you know, and approve it to go forward. Allow staff what's pending and, you know, carry on. Yeah.
And allow the board members to be a part of the committee for local issues. I think that was the other suggestion. So those are the 2 suggestions right now. It has been moved by Member Kaywell, seconded by Member Halinga. If you don't mind, I'll use you too. And this is part just to amend that certain part of the report. Member Halinga, is your hand up because you're agreeing, or you want to speak?
No, I'm agreeing.
Okay, thank you. So everybody mute themselves, and anybody opposed to that amendment? Did you want to speak, Member Beatty, or are you opposing?
I'm opposing because I feel that this should be referred back to staff for a second sober thought. I do not like making policy on the fly, so I will vote against.
Thank you. And just to remind everybody that this whole thing will be coming back to the next meeting, just to ratify what we did today. So it will come back if we have any more further questions for it. So, and I totally understand about the policy making, but this is a little bit on the time sensitive part. So this is why we're going forward. Any others opposed? Seeing none, then that amendment has been passed. So I still need an approval on 9.1A, report number FA 34-20, the NPCA Public Advisory Committee report, terms of reference and work plan as amended. So I believe we're going to go with Member Halinga, seconded by Member Houston. Any opposed? Seeing none. Who's whistling? Did anybody else hear that? Okay, thank you. No one opposed, so we're moving on. Thank you, that's been approved. So at this point in time, I haven't seen any official notice of motions yet. So we're going to go on to new business. Chandra is going to fill us in on a whole whack of stuff verbally. So go ahead, Chandra, you're on. You have to unmute yourself, please. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to be very brief because we have some other business to deal with. I'm going to be very briefly providing you updates on three things that members have asked for. One is the provincial consultation on the Economic Recovery Act that we just spoke about, a recent incident at Balls Falls, and a quick update on COVID pandemic. In terms of the first one, the provincial consultation, as was mentioned during the meeting today, Ontario has introduced this COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act, and it's an omnibus bill which does include the legislative changes to the Environmental Assessment Act. We have been invited as a stakeholder to participate in an information session. Staff will be attending the session, and we would like board members who are available to attend if they are interested. One is on July the 20th at 10 a.m. The other one is July 21st at 1 to 3 p.m. If you are interested, please contact Grant, and he will either register you as an NPCA member or send you the information to register directly. So that's a quick update on that. I should also mention that generally we would provide our comments to Conservation Ontario on these things, and they will include it in the overall Conservation Authority comments on these type of legislative matters. However, I think on this one, we would like to have NPCA comment directly, and some conservation authorities do that. So staff are meeting, and we will be looking at producing some comments that will go to the ministry under the chair's signatures, and Brenda has agreed to do that. So that's a bit of an update on that for you. Members will have an opportunity to review the letter if they like. It may happen outside the meeting, so we will be happy to circulate it to members who are interested. Again, please let Grant know about your interest. The second update I want to provide today is the incident at Balls Falls on July the 7th, which was very unfortunate. And once again, our thoughts and prayers are with the family of the young man. Per our procedures, we did do an immediate incident report, and we've informed the Ministry of Labor and any other service providers that we needed to inform. So all the balls are rolling, and we have it all covered from that perspective. I'm really, I must say, I'm really proud of our staff who were on site and shown immense strength and professionalism in dealing with the incident. You know, I was on site the next day with other senior member leadership team members. We walked the site immediately after the incident. Our site is really equipped with safety signage. However, as we all know, we're seeing unprecedented behaviors during this time everywhere. Municipalities are experiencing, NPCAs So we're trying to do more than what we have traditionally done. We may be issuing, we're doing another press release now for all of our conservation areas. We may be doing a water safety blitz, education blitz soon to tell people about public safety around water, as well as if needed, we're going to put bigger signage. So, you know, to replace small signage and right in the river so people can, if they are trespassing where they're not supposed to trespass, they can, the sign is right on their face and they can see that. So these are some of the measures I wanted to share with the board. I've also shared, you know, NPCA's response with Town of Lincoln, talked to their CAO, and police is doing their job and we are participating as needed. So that's a little update on that one. In regards to COVID, if you remember at the last board meeting, we were asked to present a scenario analysis and the numbers were not ready at this point because we're still kind of calculating what our real impacts are. So we've decided to bring a full analysis of financial impacts to date to the Finance Committee on July 29th. And this analysis will be presented with, as requested, best case, worst case scenarios, and the numbers we talked about today on what our financials were, and you know, if there were any layoffs or hirings, you know, summer seasonal hirings, if we do or not do, how many. So all of that information will be included in that. I'm really also pleased to say that we've been eligible for this federal funding. We've applied and received Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy for periods 1 and 2. It's a total amount of $336,000. Thanks to Lise and her finance team for being very steadfast with that. We are at this point not eligible for period 3. So because in order to meet eligibility, revenue losses must be 30% for June. And we are sitting at that number yet, so we will know better later. And if we are eligible, we will certainly apply for phase 3. So that's a little bit of a financial update. In terms of return to work planning, again, like I mentioned last time, our joint health and safety committee at the staff level is engaged. They are completing a risk identification and making recommendations for any safety protocols that should be in place to allow employees to come back to the workplace. We understand that Niagara region is opening that office for a very controlled public access. So we are aware of that. We're working with them to see how we can also transition back into workplace slowly at our own place, but we want to be very cautious about you know, a new wave of pandemic and how things might change with the recent openings of phase 2 and 3. So we're being very cautious and taking every step with full thinking and proper recommendations. We've also been asked to provide a detailed assessment of our parks operations and what's open, what's closed, what kind of programming is being offered, what measures are in place for our safety of our guests and staff. And I asked Adam to prepare a brief update on that, and I'll now hand over to him to just give a very high-level overview of that. Adam?
Thank you, Chandra, and happy to provide a status of our conservation areas and services, what's going on. So just to be clear, what is open? Use visitation at all of our active parks, seasonal camping at Chippewa Creek and Long Beach, transient camping at Chippewa Creek and Long Beach, our Balls Falls Summer Outdoor Adventure Camp is operating, passive recreation, of course, at all of our conservation areas, third-party services, including the Niagara Rowing School at Jordan Harbor, and treetop trekking, border pass, and Bimbrook Wave watercraft rentals, all at Bimbrook as well. What is not being offered at NPCA at this time is anything to do with wedding services. We'll revisit this with stage 3. Facility and pavilion and picnic area rentals. Playgrounds will remain closed until stage 3. We are not operating washrooms at our passive, unstaffed conservation areas that include St. John's, Wood End, Stevensville, and Beamer. For safety measures that are in place with these openings, We have new physical distancing signage throughout all of our areas. Transient camping at Chippewa Creek and Long Beach is only offered at a 50% capacity. We have an increase in external security presence at Balls Falls and Bimbrook on weekends. New gatehouse health and safety protocols. We have additional PPE and health and safety protocols for all of our staffed areas. Additional park usage signage at all of our areas, claiming the rules of the parks. And lastly, what is being done to manage the capacity at some of our parks, which mostly are affected by Bimbrook and Balls Falls, which is our communications team are engaging in a media blitz, direct communication regarding capacity and hours to membership holders and third-party services. We have an increased social media engagement in priority locations about park rules, regulations, and peak times. We've also updated the voicemail and social media accounts at primary parks regarding capacity and wait times, and local area signage asking visitors to call ahead prior to their visit. And for this weekend, we've actually included police presence at peak times at Bimbrook Conservation Area.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, we can take any questions now.
Unmuting myself. I have Member Woodhouse so far. Member Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is in regards to the second item that that Sandra raised, or a bit of information. Can we move that discussion to an in-camera discussion? There's some issues or some questions I'd like to ask that are from a legal perspective, if we could, that I don't think should be discussed in public.
If it shouldn't be discussed in public, I totally agree, but keep in mind we don't have legal staff with us, so if there's anything legal, then we're going to have to reach out to someone else after the meeting is over. So just keep that in mind, please.
Yes, not a problem at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing any others. I also want to reiterate what Chandra said about Adam and your group and how you handled everything at Balls Falls. It was absolutely above and beyond. Also to comment on the Bimbrook Conservation Authority, because that's in my ward, it's created its own monster, if you will, because whether it's a combination of COVID and people trying to get out to their green space, and we all understand that green space has become more important to everyone, we're also creating traffic problems and after night visitors. So security has been hired, which is a good step forward. I think that the local residents will truly appreciate that part of it. So Adam, thanks so much for staying on top of that. And thank you, Chandra, for your update, both of you. So I'm going to ask right now that moved by Member Vice Chair McKenzie and seconded by Member Rapley that we receive this verbal update. Seeing no opposition, no comments, no questions. Thank you. So just to remind everyone before we go into camera that we will be adjourning after we come out of camera, and the web streaming will stop prior to our closed session because there will be no public motions coming out. So Grant, if you don't mind, please sharing on the screen a motion to move in camera and why we're moving in camera, please. Thank you.
And
I love watching these mice going all over.
Brenda, just a point of order.
Mr. Member, go ahead.
I'm just wondering on, because Member Woodhouse asked to have something added to the agenda. So
yes,
do we need to have something written up for public consumption on what it is we're adding to the public agenda? So it needs to be captured in the minutes what we are adding for the in-camera agenda.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to Grant. Grant, I know you were listening in on the conversation. Member Woodhouse has more detailed questions about the incident at Balls Falls that needs to stay confidential until after the police report is over. Is there wording that we can add to the back of this to make sure that we've captured everything we're going in camera for?
Most definitely. I think it would pertain mostly to security of the property of the municipality, which sorry, not municipality, in this case, the NPCA. I think that's a very broad grounds to go into close, and I think that would encapsulate everything. It's the most relevant under our administrative bylaw. So I do have the motion to go into close, which we can add that to. But prior to that, I think the second item in the closed session agenda will require you to appoint someone as a recording secretary for that portion, because we do not have staff in attendance for that. So that's the motion that's up on the screen now.
Okay, so we're going in for actually three things. Two of the three, Grant and Chandra will be present. And then the third thing, all staff will be eliminated. So we need to appoint a clerk. Before we do that, though, I want to go back to Member Smith. Member Smith, are you okay to add on for the second item will be to address the security and the property of the MPCA?
Thank you very much.
Okay, good for you. Okay, so here we go, folks. So in the absence of a staff member of the board, I would like to get a volunteer for someone who would like to be the clerk or recording secretary. Trust me, there won't be much to record for closed session item B, 12B, or sorry, it'll be C now. Sorry, Grant, it'll be C. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including an NPCA employee. So can I just have somebody shout out that they would just take some minutes? I may nominate you. Okay, I see Member Brady. Way to go. Way to go, Member Brady. He gets a new Minnesota Vikings mug for me. Right, Member Beatty? Okay, thank you. So we are now nominated Member Brady. We will appoint them, and that is moved by, let's see, Member Smith and seconded by Member Steele, that Member Brady become the clerk for item number 12C in our closed session. Any opposed? I don't see anybody wanting to jump to that job, so I don't think that will be a problem. Thank you very much, everyone. So that has been carried. Now, we are going to, that the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority convene in closed session at, I believe it'll be 11:36 a.m. in accordance with section 11.1 of the NPCA administrative bylaw for the discussion on, number one, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the NPCA. Number two, to address security of property of the NPCA. And three, personal matters about identifiable individuals, including NPCA employees. So it has been moved by Member Woodhouse, seconded by Member Wright, that we go in closed session. Any opposed? Seeing none, that has been moved. So folks, I suggest right now it's 11:36 that we take a recess for about 10 minutes for nature breaks, etc., and that'll get us all set up for the closed session. Thank you, Grant. You can take that slide off now, if you don't mind. And I would like to advise all staff who are not in the first portion or the second portion, I think they're related. Staff, please recuse themselves and exit the meeting. And everyone else, we're going to take a 10-minute break. I will see you back here at, say, 11:47.